Today's Spotlight is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor, First Community Financial Bank, the community bank where you come first. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Spotlight. I'm your host, Jane Wynette, and with me now representing Samaritan Interfaith are Nancy Sayer and Reverend Clint Roberts. So welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you, and we're going to start out with you, Nancy, and ask you just to give us an overview. Samaritan Interfaith.
Yep. So Samaritan Interfaith is a faith-based counseling center here in Naperville. It was started with 3 congregations about 45 years ago, and it was Our Savior's Lutheran Church and St. Raphael's, and then Knox Presbyterian that Clint is now pastor of.
Okay, great, terrific.
Yeah.
Now you have an anniversary coming up, just to kind of put that in perspective.
Yep. So we've been in Naperville for 45 years, servicing various congregations throughout the Naperville area and outside of that.
Okay, and where are you located?
We are located in 2 different locations. We have the Naperville Center is at the Bay Scott Center at 75th and Book. And then we have the Center for Congregations that's up off of Deal Road. And then we've got a center out in Geneva, and then we have one in Downers Grove. They're satellite centers for us.
Okay, so you're based here, but you've got places other places.
Yep, that's right.
Clint, you were part, and as part of, as Nancy just said, as part of the original group that came together.
That's correct.
How would you describe kind of Samaritan's role within the community?
I think our congregation, along with others, saw the need to have high quality mental health resources in a rapidly growing community like Naperville. The work of a pastor in professional ministry is often the initial point of contact for people that might be dealing with problems and issues in their life or in their family that really require a greater level of support than may be able to be provided in the regular life of a congregation. And so this drove the 3 original congregations to say, what can we do to bring an organization like Samaritan Interfaith to Naperville? And that's what happened 45 years ago, and it's just been a blessing ever since. It's a quiet organization. It plays a supportive role on a spiritual and a family level, individual level throughout the community on all different kinds of ways, but not something that you're necessarily going to see right away.
Well, I think it's interesting as you talked about it, and it's funny you say that, and as far as that's kind of that first point of entry, that you might feel very comfortable in your church, maybe talking about something that you might not otherwise feel comfortable with, and so that sort of pathway to further support, that's an interesting concept.
People are dealing with issues like depression or adolescent issues in their families. Currently now, just the problem of addiction in our community is pretty scary.
Sure.
And Samaritan Interfaith comes alongside those issues in a way that I think is, it's non-judgmental, it's spiritually based, and it's pragmatic in its outcome. It's very accessible, I've found as a pastor, to be able to feel like I've got a group of people who understand families and our life together in Naperville and can provide the kind of resources that we often need in dealing with this world.
It's a tough world. Lots of complicating factors. Nancy, talk a little bit about it's the Center for Congregations, and that's an interesting combination of words. So explain to us what that is.
So the Center for Congregations is our consulting arm. And we formally got started about 2012 through a Lilly Endowment grant to provide services to congregations. So it really comes at the organizational level. So our counseling services provide health, healing, and hope for individuals, couples, families. And then we have the opportunity to provide that to organizations, congregations primarily. However, we're starting to move into some of the nonprofits and other organizations that have that mission-based or faith-based element to them. One of the things that we do is we provide an assessment, an organizational assessment tool called the Congregational Assessment Tool. We call that the CAT. Okay. And it helps us enter into a system to understand what their culture is, what gives that system health and vitality, how they're performing on a variety of areas, and then we can use that for strategic planning. We use that for succession planning, for a variety of things to help the congregation continue to be a healthy entity in the community.
I think it's interesting. I actually remember talking with Scott Mitchell, Dr. Scotch Mitchell many moons ago when he was first starting to talk about this whole consultative approach, which is something we don't often hear of in the social service business, but obviously applies very, very well at an organizational level. And really make sure that the impact continues to be rippled.
And when we want our families to be healthy, then we want them to be involved in organizations that are healthy. And so it enables us to extend those services then to the whole community, because ultimately we want the community to be healthy. So we see that as a holistic approach to not only the counseling, but what we can offer the congregations and eventually the community.
Okay. Clint, now you've been involved in the CAT project. Talk a little bit about that experience.
The Center for Congregation is a very cool resource for congregations in our life and our work. And this particular tool, the congregational assessment tool, Knox used this a couple of years ago. And it really gives a concise and in-depth picture of who your congregation is. What are their primary values? What's your core constituencies? What is the theological diversity represented in your congregation? What are the things that are most important to them when they think about their church and its present and future? And what is the level of trust that they have in leadership, or their hope for their purpose and mission going forward? All these things can be identified and even quantified with this tool. And the consultants from the Center for Congregations then help the leadership of the congregation really use the information in terms of assessing program and mission.
Well, there's that old saying, you get what you inspect, right? And really it's interesting to hear you talk about sort of, it really speaks to an evolution, a constantly evolving to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your congregation, which I think is very exciting.
It's very cutting edge.
It's not something you hear a lot being talked about, so that is. Nancy, big goals for the future. What excites you about the future with this?
So I think the thing that excites me is the partnerships that Samaritan Interfaith has engaged in, whether it's been a partnership with Loaves and Fishes, Hesed House, or it's moving into the senior community, or the partnerships that we've started to develop in the Chicagoland area with seminaries, with other congregations, denominations. It has really helped us to explode into a landscape that 20 years ago we really did not have access to. And then our movement into nonprofit work, and like I said, mission-based, faith-based kinds of organizations where we can bring similar kinds of tools and resources to those organizations to continue to help them be healthy. Again, a lot of the nonprofits get started out of congregations, and so it's a way that we can continue to bring that service there. And so there's a similar kind of tool that we can use in those organizations just as we take into congregations. So those partnerships are exploding and taking us, into places that we just never dreamt of before. So it's very exciting.
That is really exciting. I mean, you're really leveraging knowledge and expertise that you have for the benefit of all, and what does not fit better with something called Samaritan Interfaith. So I think that's terrific. I thank you for coming and sharing that information. And if you would like to know more about Samaritan Interfaith and the Center for Congregations, please visit their website. We're going to take a quick break for a few short messages, but don't go away because we're coming right back with more Spotlight.